Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of In Your Neighborhood from the ICAA. Today we'll be looking at Georgetown in Washington, D.C. I'm proud to say that this is my home. Georgetown is known to be a part of D.C., but in fact predated it by 50 years. These wonderful old black and white scenes from 1861 show Union soldiers guarding the ferry. There was a horse-drawn ferry because the original bridge across from Virginia to Washington, D.C. was merely an aqueduct and was an extension of the canal system. You can see some of the buildings of the Georgetown University on the hill, and you can see the mills and the wharves of the port of Georgetown. One of the great old houses up on the hill in Georgetown is Tudor Place. It's a national monument to be visited when you come to Washington. It's a very interesting house. It has a 5-part composition, and it looks as if it was conceived at one time, but in fact the wings were predated the architecture that we see today. The owner was Martha Parks Custis Peter, who was a granddaughter of George Washington's, a beneficiary of his will. She and her husband hired Dr. William Thornton, who designed the original Capitol here, as well as the Octagon House, which is the head of the American Institute of Architects, to actually design this 5-part mansion. Interestingly enough, the buff coat stucco covers the brick of different eras, and it has a wonderful semi-engaged circular porch gazing out over the Potomac. Beautiful gardens, and it also contains a lot of objects from Martha and George Washington's home. At the top of the ridge in Georgetown lies a beautiful estate called Dumbarton Oaks. It was part of a land grant by Queen Anne in the early 1700s, and in the 20s and 30s was greatly extended and improved by the Bliss family. They hired landscape architect Beatrix Farrand, who did a wonderful job of designing the gardens, and that's one of the main reasons to visit today. There's a wonderful orangerie, a terrific pool, an evaporation garden, a series of engaged pavilions and terraced gardens wandering down towards the south and the east. Well worth a visit. Continuing our tour in Upper Georgetown, we're in the park right next to Dumbarton Oaks. This is Montrose Park. And one of the great historical remnants at Montrose Park is this long, straight walk that you see behind me. This is a remnant of when there used to be a rope making factory here. This was called a rope walk because people would work their way down, as you imagine, with strands of twine to end up making rope. It was considered of such strategic value that this is the only other site which the British saw to torch in 1814, when they also famously torched the White House. And the long straight line was needed because these X-shaped frames would stop the ropes from untwisting as they were being made into ropes, and pitch was poured over them to make them resist the water. This handsome building is called the Mount Zion United Methodist Church. It was built in 1876 and is an historically black church that has been a key institution in the black life of Georgetown. Georgetown at one point was as much as 20 to 25% black, and this was based on a mixture of slaves and freed slaves who did a lot of the work supporting the families and the businesses of Georgetown, including and especially the port of Georgetown. Poplar Street is a small cul-de-sac in Georgetown that still contains many of the small row houses that were the homes to freed blacks, and it was a vibrant center in the local community. It has now been gentrified, but you can imagine what it was like in its heyday. We are now looking at the Mount Zion Cemetery, which is composed of 2 separate adjacent cemeteries, the Old Methodist Burying Ground and the Female Union Band Society Graveyard. This is an historically black graveyard, which on its eastern side is bordered by Rock Creek Park, and on its north and western side bounded by the White Cemetery, the Oak Hill Cemetery, and is really a snapshot of the way in which Georgetown existed in 2 colors, as many parts of the country did in the earlier years. This land was bought in the early 1800s, and people stopped being buried there about 50 years ago. It had fallen into disrepair, but is now the subject of a restoration effort. It also houses a fascinating little vault, which was a step on the Underground Railroad. It's a little building tucked into the hill facing Rock Creek Park, which was accessed only on the quiet side, on the invisible side, and there were housed bodies that were waiting burial, and there were also housed people that were spending the night or nights while on the run as part of the Underground Railroad. Dumbarton House, a handsome 5-part house, used to stand astride Q Street And when they decided to build a second bridge over to connect Washington, D.C. to Georgetown, they needed to move the house. The main block was physically moved up onto the hill, a new basement dug, and the wings added. The wings were taken down, the bricks were numbered, and they were added together. It is still a fine and imposing residence. This last stop on our tour of Georgetown is wonderful because it is a bridge that connects Georgetown to the rest of Washington, D.C., only the second bridge to connect it. And it was decided that it should be a truly American bridge, that it should have distinctive American iconography. So the beautiful bronze sculptures by Alexander Proctor are on top of the bridge, designed by Glenn Brown. And Glenn Brown also decided that there should be the head of the chief kicking bear from the Lakota tribe, who had actually agreed when he was in D.C. in the 1890s to have a mask made of his face. So these two beautiful sculptures, together with a beautiful bridge, sort of close the connection between D.C. and Georgetown.